Hey, good morning, everyone. As you talked, back at it. Another video. Today is going to be a video, basically about the obvious, the cultural shift that we are in the midst of, the spiritual revival, if you will. And I think it's glorious. I've kind of unknowingly, for a long time in my life, I felt something tugging at me, and I've largely ignored it. And I think that, this last few weeks has kind of it's surfaced, and now I'm aware of what the tugging was. And maybe it's like maybe I'd like to consider it a calling, if you will. I have, we're all powerful. We all can speak from a place of power. And Charlie Kirk did that well. Yesterday was the funeral service, and I have some mixed emotions on the funeral service, actually. I thought it was great. Specific things I like to see the unity. I like to see the amount of people in place, all for the same purpose, and in love and support for the Kirk family and the organization Turning Point USA. I think that they are certainly beneficial, and will help grow the organization and carry on his mission, and all those things all those quotes that you're seeing about how he's a martyr, and it will all grow exponentially now. You thought you ended his voice, but instead you largely in part multiplied his voice. And I think that those things are all true. I'm not real pleased on the surface with the way it's being politicized, though. Yesterday, for a little bit, kind of felt like a Trump rally. I don't watch the Trump rallies all that much. I support Trump. I've voiced in the past, I think that his ego is his Achilles heel. I think that was evident yesterday. Although he was trying to be gracious and speak about Charlie Kirk's legacy, I kind of was turned off by the idea that we were talking about it being a sellout crowd. Like how many people were in the stadium. Like, that doesn't matter. We were there celebrating a man's life and legacy. The 200,000 people or whatever may have been there was just a drop in the bucket of the people in the world that are actually moved by this, that are part of the actual revival. And I think that it got lost. I think that message got lost. Like on television. I don't know. Maybe I'm just blabbering, but it just seemed a little disingenuous to me. And I don't mean that just about Trump. I mean, there was more. Other things is, and I saw a lot of people commenting during the live stream about it, that probably Erica Kirk should have gone last and Trump before her. I mean, in my eyes at least, she would have been the most affected person by this, and the most important person in the room. Her and her children. And Trump could have stepped aside and allowed her to have her final word, I guess. But instead, and I don't know, was this his ego? Was this like a requirement? Like, I have to go last. I'm the president of the United States, so I have to have the final say. I don't know. I wasn't privy to that information or that conversation. I'm just saying that how I felt. Her message was her messaging was good and on point. About, I think, growing Turning Point and her being the new CEO. and whatnot, and I'm excited for the future of Turning Point. And again, none of this is to say that I was a giant supporter of Turning Point. I, like probably 1 billion people on the planet right now, have done a lot more research and video watching of Charlie Kirk and his messaging since his passing, which is always the case with people. People pass away, and then you want to find out what was so interesting about that person or about that organization. So yeah, but of course they had some great messaging, and they had some messaging that I don't necessarily agree with. But what he did and the way he did it, I completely respect, and I wish that was a thing that could be done all around the world by everybody, and that there didn't have to be this level of violence. I mean, we should be able to do that in regards to the way that our country has meetings. They should be doing that right now with the war in Ukraine and Russia. Prove me wrong. Whatever the case could be. Geez, the sun is bright. But yeah, I don't know. It just seemed to get diluted a little bit. We're celebrating a man's life and legacy, and it seemed like a GOP rally. And at the end of the day, I can't really blame them for that. It was a Democrat who coined the phrase "never let a good crisis go to waste." Rahm Emanuel, I think it is. I forget where he is. He might be the mayor of Chicago or something like that. But anyway, he said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I mean, they for sure didn't, right? They're using they used Charlie Kirk's death and the celebration of his legacy as probably as a way to garner support for this next election cycle. And I can't really fault them for that, because as a politician, that is largely your job, is to be constantly trying to garner support for your movement and your side. So there's that, and I've got my feelings on that. I would still at this particular moment vote Republican. I was I liked JD Vance's take on it, and I did like RFK's speech about it. I thought that it was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, but all in all, the music was the music and the celebration. Really, actually, the ones that were most impactful to me, or the ones that I liked the most, as far as speakers were the actual leaders of Turning Point. I thought that they were certainly on point with their messaging and talking about going forward, and hearing his partner, talk about the beginning of Turning Point and the workload that they were doing and the way that they were doing it, and they were operating from 2 different coasts, communicating back and forth, blah blah blah. I mean, I thought that was pretty impactful and impressive. So, I mean, that's kind of my feelings on that. The other thing that I want to say is I hope that people understand, that this is all a slippery slope, right? This revival that we're experiencing can be great. It has the potential to be the greatest in the history of mankind, potentially, right? But I want to I want to let people know that there's not a specific denomination that is required for you to be part of this revival, right? Because what I don't want to see happen, or what I'm afraid is going to happen, is that the Christian right is going to get some sort of feel some sort of level of moral superiority over the rest of the planet, and they are of course spiritually right, because Charlie Kirk is now a martyr, and that was his denomination. That doesn't have to mean anything. You can be a Buddhist, you could be Islamic, You could be a Catholic, you could be Lutheran, you could be evangelical. It doesn't really matter. The spiritual awakening and this revival is for everyone. Because the hell with the moral superiority in this matter. This is just about morality. That's what we should be focused on. The word moral is correct in the beginning of this. The morality of what we're witnessing is what's most important. The shift in people's ideologies about political violence and how we treat one another and how we support one another, that is the actual moral superiority in this, not the denomination of the people, or the denomination of what people are out there with the loudest voices, So just be careful, don't get sucked in and trapped into, and I'm not trying to criticize the Christian right either. After all, they certainly do, constantly put this stuff out there and show like massive amounts of faith, which is impressive. Like I said, I have a few videos where I've mentioned this. I certainly respect and appreciate, and I'm also like bewildered by these people with this faith, that just kind of like that whole idea that Jesus is your co-pilot thing. It's hard for me it's always been hard for me to grasp, and I'm probably closer to that moment right now than I've ever been, and I appreciate it. Actually, I appreciate the feeling. I appreciate the buzz that I'm feeling throughout my entire body right now, on account of this potential closeness to God. So yeah, there are my thoughts on what we witnessed yesterday. And again, the word witness, we are all a witness. We all bear witness to that greatness. And there's going to be a lot of people out there today trashing it and bashing it and so on and so forth. The nihilists and the atheists and whatnot are going to, basically have you believe that this is all bullshit, to counter the faith movement. But yeah, we witnessed something great yesterday. I pray for Erica Kirk and her family. I pray for America and that we're able to heal. I pray for, President Trump and the American people, and that America can come back together as the greatest and freest nation on the planet. All right, that's what I got for this morning. Thanks for your time. Like and subscribe. Check out my videos on X. My X videos are a little more, I don't know if I'm controversial, but I kind of dive into the politics a little bit more, and what my thoughts are. I also have two Instagrams, one of them being for my business and one of them being personal. That is more preferably inspirational and godly content, and just and also a lot of sarcasm and cynical thoughts that I have, and then this being my YouTube channel, it's gonna be all over the place. I mean, I did some videos about weight loss and my own personal journey there. So, like, subscribe, let's interact, let's talk, have some questions. Love to interact with you. Thanks for your time.